Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to these opening ceremonies of the African Development Bank Group right here in the beautiful and very vibrant city of Abidjan, in the equally beautiful country of Côte d'Ivoire, a capital city and a country whose economy and infrastructure is growing at the speed of light. No doubt, testimonies to the visionary and bold leadership of President Ouattara. Congratulations.
Yes, of course. It's my distinct pleasure and honor to welcome, with all of the protocol due to them, we'd like to warmly welcome to the stage His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of the Comoros.
Mr. John Mahama, President of the Republic of Ghana. As well as His Excellency Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango, Vice President, United Republic of Tanzania, representing Her Excellency Mrs. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania.
Et enfin,
and I would also like to invite His Excellency Mr. Ali Mahaman Lamine, Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger, to kindly join us on this panel.
Mesdames et messieurs, nous
Ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, we will kickstart our high-level discussion. My first question is addressed to His Excellency Mr. Azali Assoumani, President of the Union of Comoros. Mr. President, the Comoros are blessed by nature, blessed with huge potential in the blue economy. We hear this very regularly at a time when island countries are seeking to leverage their maritime resources as drivers of growth. How is your government building on this source to build a sustainable, job-generating economy, one that's turned towards the future? Thank you very much, Madam. At the outset, I would like to avail myself of this wonderful opportunity to congratulate and thank President Ouattara for all of the excellent arrangements that have been made. As is the custom, whenever we come to Côte d'Ivoire, we are wonderfully welcomed here. We also were very moved by the speech made by our brother Adeshina, as he said, 10 years at the helm of this institution. The performance of this institution, its standing at the international is speaks for itself. We'd like to thank him and tell him you have two graces to celebrate: the grace of God and the grace who stands by your side, and wherever you go, they will be with you, and you'll always be successful. To respond to your question, this is, of course, this is a crucially important question. We are an island country. We are faced with climate change. So we are an island country, but we are comprised of 4 islands, in fact, and therefore this puts us before major challenges. As you said, this is a country, 2,000 square kilometers, land kilometers, but 150,000 square kilometers of sea, of maritime space. So this is a huge potential in terms of area. The challenge, however, is climate change, rising sea levels, piracy, illicit fishing, pollution. These are the many challenges we must face. But I can reassure you that the African Development Bank and President Adesina has been very supportive. And to respond to your question specifically, as you said, the blue economy requires, of course, the fishery capacity that we have. Unfortunately, that's still undertapped. But we are focused on this. And then to date, we have been able to use some 30% of this resource through traditional fishery techniques, but we've worked with partners such as the bank who have been willing to finance us, to work in partnerships as well, in order to transform our fishing capacity to commercial grade. We have worked with, we have been able rather to train our fishers. We have been working with partners. We have sought out investors as well who have demonstrated their interest and supported us. But as you know, we have fisheries and tourism as our key assets. This is very much our focus, madam. But of course, we need your support, your assistance, be it at multilateral level or bilateral level. Countries such as Côte d'Ivoire, with the experience you have, I think would be very useful. So once again, thank you very much. And our cooperation is long-standing. It's about 50 years old. We will continue to do more. And I'd like to thank you, madam.
Thank you very much, President Assoumani. And thank you very much again also for your passion, even as a leader. Our next question is going to come to President Mahama. Well, the big elephant in the room is the global shifts that are taking place geopolitically in the midst of growing trade uncertainties globally. What is Ghana doing to leverage the value of its tremendous commodities and natural resources? And how well is Ghana coping with the growing uncertainty right now?
Thank you very much. After the Second World War, we agreed that a multilateral rule-based trading system was a better way to go. And so a lot of work was done by the World Trade Organization, together with all our countries, to set up the rules for trade amongst ourselves. Unfortunately, that system is being upended, and countries have decided to impose tariffs based on their own interests. And so we've transitioned into a transactional world. It sends a signal to Africa that we need to pull ourselves out by our bootstraps, because there's not going to be a free dinner anywhere. And that means that we must, one, mobilize more revenue locally. And I mean, with the assistance of the African Development Bank, I think that we're doing quite fine. But domestically, we must mobilize revenue locally. We must add value to our products, and we must get a better share for the natural resource endowment that God has given us. And so I believe that is a signal to all of us to look inward and see how we can trade more amongst ourselves. Happily, we have the protocol on the African Continental Free Trade Area, which the majority of African nations have ratified. And so what it means is that we have the opportunity to be able to trade amongst ourselves. And I'm happy that the African Development Bank and other partners have focused on investing in the trade infrastructure amongst ourselves. It's not enough to just have a protocol on continental free trade. If you don't have the railways, you don't have the highways, you don't have the aviation connections to be able to exchange goods amongst yourselves, it amounts to naught. And that's why the investment in railways, in ports, in highways and others is very timely. And I think we must take advantage of that. In Ghana, we have expanded our port, and it's become a hub for receiving some of the biggest ships into our port, because we have a deep draft of almost 16 meters. And so once we receive containers, bound for any country from Namibia, Angola, Cameroon, all the way to Dakar, we can redistribute. And that means that we can also distribute any products that we have to export to all these other ports. And so that's positioning ourselves to be able to trade more with our colleague African countries.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. But let's also talk about value addition. Everyone in this room likes chocolate. I believe everybody does. But what I do know, and what we do know, is that other than Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, the largest producers of chocolate in the world, both countries only occupy a very, very small portion of the finished goods in terms of cocoa. What is it that your country, in conjunction with Cote d'Ivoire, can do, for example, to increase the level at where you're operating in the value chain globally?
That's why sometimes you notice that the World Economic Order is rigged against Africa. We can increase processing overnight, but you have non-tariff barriers in exporting into some of the markets. Unless they bring a processor from outside, from Europe, who comes and sets up a processing plant and gets all the regulatory things in place. I mean, an indigenous person setting up a processing plant sometimes has a very big difficulty exporting finished products into the EU market and into the American market. But I must say that we've made progress from a low of about 25% processed cocoa. Ghana has risen to about 40%, and I know Cote d'Ivoire is ahead of us. Cote d'Ivoire has done 50%, which is comfortable. And so 50% of Cote d'Ivoire's cocoa is processed domestically. Ghana is at 40%. We hope that over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll reach the stage of Cote d'Ivoire at 50% and push even further.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. We'll go next to Vice President Mpango. Your country has invested tremendously in infrastructure in the last few years, particularly in the area of transport infrastructure. You're expanding regional connectivity and trade. How is Tanzania mobilizing capital to achieve these very, very ambitious dreams that President Samia Suluhu has? And what role is the African Development Bank playing in that regard? Huge dreams, huge ambitions. How are you dealing with that?
Well, thank you very much. First, I wish to thank the government and the people of Cote d'Ivoire for a very warm welcome. Indeed, we really feel at home. Thank you very much. Straight to your question, indeed for us, infrastructure is really critical for the radical economic transformation that we are pursuing. The challenge is, of course, that infrastructure is very expensive. And therefore, we have had to work very hard to mobilize financing to put up the railways. We are doing a standard gauge railway that will connect us to neighboring Burundi and DRC. We are also doing major roads that will connect us to our neighbors so that we are able to trade among ourselves. But for that to be done, we know very well that the terrain globally in terms of financing opportunities is not very good. The interest rates are very high in the capital market. And so we have had to, one, focus on how best we harness the private sector. How do we do that? We are deepening domestic capital markets. So, for example, we have issued the Samia Infrastructure Bond. We have done another bond to extend water in one of our local authorities in Tanga. We have done several green bonds, and this has helped us to mobilize financing internally. But not only that, we are also using pension fund resources to build bridges in Dar es Salaam and other towns, and we have found that quite helpful. But importantly also, we have put more energy in terms of improving our own tax administration, and particularly leveraging new technology. So we have electronic fiscal devices instead of relying on the human hand in collecting taxes. But we have also introduced a more efficient system of looking at the tax complaints from our taxpayers. So we introduced a tax ombudsman office in order that our taxpayers can raise grievances, if any, that they have against the tax authorities. But thirdly, I think very important, we have continued to mobilize external finance in terms of loans and grants. And here, the power of the African Development Bank has been extremely useful to us. We have used this leveraging power to mobilize finances for the standard gauge railway, for building our airports, for building our roads, and that way we have been doing quite well. But let me wind up with just one caution. In mobilizing external resources in particular, it is very important that we keep an eye on debt sustainability so that you avoid the risk of falling into the debt trap once again. So always keep an eye on ensuring that we don't go back to being a debt-distressed country. Thank you.
Very good cautionary words, Vice President Mpango. I just want to appeal to us in the hall. There seems to be a whole lot of noise in the back. Please, let's extend courtesies to the excellencies on the platform. Keep your voices down, and if you do need to speak, please go out of the hall. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. On va parler d'un autre moyen de...
Let us talk about another way to boost economic growth. I'm going to share some figures with you concerning Niger. Niger's GDP growth should reach 7.4% in 2025, thanks to oil production estimated at 30 million barrels. These are impressive figures. Mr. Prime Minister, how does your government intend to ensure that oil revenue will be used effectively so as to boost sustainable economic development, which is truly sustainable, in a bid to reduce poverty in Niger? Thank you very much. Allow me to start by acknowledging the wonderful performances and achievements by President Adesina this last decade at the African Development Bank Group. He said, thanks to the boards that supported him and countries that supported him, he was able to achieve this. He also said this was possible thanks to his spouse, and I would like to extend my regards to her. Let me continue by noting that Niger's growth rate is quite important, and we should grant Niger the possibility to continue its exploration. Niger, with two other countries of the AES, are jointly facing terrorism. Yesterday we were hit by terrorists, and my thoughts go to the victims. It is quite unjust. We have huge potential, not just oil. We have uranium, which we seized from the hands of those who had been exploring it for about 60 years. We have solar energy. We are a big country, and we have sun all year round. We also have coal, and it is the highest concentrated zone in West Africa, as well as other gas resources. To answer your question, the head of state of Niger, General Tiani, who has been at the helm of the state for the past 22 months, almost 23 months, has shown determination, and that is to explore and manage the natural resources in the best way possible, and by doing so with integrity. Back to the bank's president, beyond all of what had been mentioned, I would like to quickly remind us about the high fives. How to light up Africa. We have all of these resources which I've listed. How to feed Africa. 1 million, more than 1 million square kilometers, as well as rich soils. The AfDB is funding one of our major projects called the Kandaji project, and is going to produce power in Niger as well as farming areas so as to boost production in cereals for Niger. It's also going to help regenerate the ecosystem. On industrialization, for the last 22 months, we've tried to revive dormant industrial units so as to boost rice production. We've always noted in Niger that it's impossible to produce rice away from the river area, but we've been able to do so this year in the southern eastern zones in our country, and so it helps to cover the needs of people living in those zones or in those areas. The bank is funding the Trans-Saharan Highway, which cuts through Chad and gets to Niger. It's a major project. We have connectivity. And on human development, we took bold steps. You know, for us, oil needs to serve Niger first. And so the decision was to drop oil prices to ensure that it is accessible to all. We've taken measures on the health, regarding health, so as to provide health for the population, as well as education to be made available to youth. And so this is what I can say. We are working to ensure that growth is available for all. Thank you very much for sharing these initiatives with us. We see that these are not just dreams, but talking about costly living, efforts have been made to ensure sustainable development. We're talking about the wealth of Africa. President Assoumani, the diaspora of the Comoros is a strong economic force for your country. Remittances account for about 20% of the GDP in your country, in addition to, well, far beyond official development assistance. So what strategies are in place to ensure that these contributions from the diaspora are translated into concrete projects which are beneficial for the country? Thank you for this important question. You are right, madam. The diaspora of the Comoros represents about 50% of the population. Our population is approximately 800,000 inhabitants, and in the diaspora we have more than 350,000. And so it is a huge chunk of the entire population of the Comoros. We stand proud of our diaspora. Those living in France or elsewhere always think about their country. No matter how long they are away, they are full patriots at heart. Wherever they are, they think about their country. It is true. We had things in the past, but you've mentioned that we need to capitalize on these remittances, which stands above official development assistance. And it is approximately 320 million euros on a yearly basis. And so we need to draw benefits from this. So first, these remittances have ensured that we never face hunger issues or famine crisis in the Comoros, thank God. And so our aim is to ensure that we have commodities for us to have consistent consumption, and so diaspora helps in this regard. This contributes to growing our economy. In addition, the diaspora of the Comoros needs to invest in the country to ensure that the country remains self-sufficient and to ensure that we are able to cater for our needs. In addition, our brothers and sisters in the diaspora living in France and who wish to visit the country or return to the country, they should be able to feel comfortable when they arrive and continue living. We know that at the moment we have extremism in these countries abroad, and so the diaspora might be tempted to return to the country. So we need to ensure that once they step foot in the country, they are able to feel comfortable back at home. As such, we have two challenges. First, with remittances, how do we ease transfer of finances? And so the Central Bank of the Comoros is working in this regard. I spoke with President Adesina how we can ensure that these money transfers are made easy and speedy, and for the funds not to remain stuck or lost in the air. And so we need to ensure that mechanisms are in place, and the most important mechanism is investment. How do we ensure that the diaspora transferring their money can proceed with investing in the country? We are a country where there are huge opportunities when talking about investments. Much is left to be done. We have road infrastructure. We have development as a whole. You have all spoken upstage here about transformation, and Africa has huge potential. Unfortunately, we proceed with crude exports and we gain nothing. However, we can process or transform on the spot. In 10 years, need I say 20 years, Africa will be the top market. Before exporting, we shall consume. And so we would have the capacity to consume, to transform, to export. Let us also encourage investors coming to our country because they have the capacity to invest. In addition, we should think about labor force. We could have investors coming in, and we should ensure that there are opportunities for everyone and we have qualified labor when people come to invest. In all African countries, it's important to note that we have a huge youth population, estimated at about 60% of the population. So the youths are there and they can become our qualified labor force and make good progress. This is in the Sahel countries and all of our countries in Africa. We should ensure that these youths are not swayed away by terrorism. We should ensure that the money from the diaspora is put to good use, because our diaspora send their children to visit and live in the country. So it is important for them to feel safe when they come to the country. Among the flagship projects for the countries emergent by 2030, we have training and health. So we're focusing on training for the youth to gain skills and to be busy. As such, we are at peace. They can work during the day. In the evening, they get back to their homes, they're with their families, and the next day they go back to work. If they are not trained, then they can do this. We also have another issue with immigration. We don't talk much about this. If these youths are trained, they will stay at home. And so what I can say is we have a patriotic diaspora. We thank them immensely for what they are doing, but we need to also capitalize on remittances, again, which stands above official development assistance. However, we can spare the rod and spoil the child. Even if the diaspora gives us much money, we still make a plea to the AfDB to continue its financial support. Our bank, the AfDB, is the second major support, and we hope next year is going to go beyond the World Bank as our major partner. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
It's quite rare to find a president who's also the chief marketing officer of the nation. And we just want to thank you, President Assoumani, for your passion. And if you're an investor in the House today, after these annual meetings. If I were you, I'd be knocking on the door of the Comoros. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My next question comes to President Mahama.
Bienvenue.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Excellency.
You're welcome.
Next question is to President Mahama. Earlier, Vice President Mpango cautioned, and very wisely so, about the need for debt sustainability. And Ghana in particular seems to have done very well in restructuring its high levels of public debt. But since you've come into office, what specifically are you doing to return Ghana to a much more acceptable and sustainable debt path?
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's history. Everybody knows now that Ghana defaulted on its debt. We engaged in a painful debt exchange program to restructure our debts and to bring debt to GDP to a range of about 55 to 58% by 2028. The debt restructuring was concluded early this year with our bilateral creditors, and therefore it brought, one, the quantum of debt down, that's the size, but it also stretched out the repayment of the debt. That brought us down to about 75, 76% debt to GDP. Since then, we're left with just 3% of the debt. We've covered 97%. It's left with the commercial creditors who hold just about 3% of the debt. And once we do that, then it means that the whole debt restructuring has been completed. But like I said when I spoke at first, I said we need to put any credit that we take or any debt that we take into the most productive parts of our economy in providing infrastructure so that you can have a rate of return on debt. You must do smart borrowing, taking debt where you can create debt escrows so that the income for which you invested the credit can go to repay. For instance, I mean, expressways that are tolled where the toll revenues are escrowed so that they go to pay the expressway in 25 years or so. I think that these are the kinds of things that we should do. There are many examples. For instance, we built a first-class port, and that, again, did not sit on our public debt. We made our Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority and their partners, Meridian Port Services, build the ports, which cost us about $1 billion, and that port is paying for itself, and that debt does not sit on our books. We built a new airport terminal we call Terminal 3, and again, we built it on the balance sheet of the Ghana Airports Company Limited. And so that project is paying for itself without sitting on our public debt. And so these are some of the innovative ideas that we need to introduce in order that our debts continue to be sustainable. But also, increasingly, one of the push factors for the debt is the strength of the value of the local currency. Our debt continued to multiply because the cedi continued to grow weaker. And so you needed more cedis. Because our public debt is stated in cedis, the weaker the cedi becomes against the foreign currencies, the higher it pushes up your debt. Fortunately, I mean, some measures we put in place have recently begun to show results, and the cedi has been strengthening. And so we've reduced our total debt over the last 5 months by almost 150 billion cedis, which is very significant. And so if that trajectory continues, the target of reaching 55 to 58% debt sustainability by 2028 will be reached by the end of this year. And that means that it gives us fiscal space to begin to invest in the most productive sectors of the economy. But like I said, we need to look inward, boost domestic revenue, cut wasteful government expenditure, fight corruption, and introduce better accountability in governance. And that is what the focus of my administration is.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. Very, very well said. I'm going to pivot back to Vice President Mpango once again. Tanzania in particular has shown great ambition with its $12.9 billion energy compact to expand clean and inclusive energy access by 2030. And Tanzania was the host of the Mission 300 summit, which was highly successful just in January. How is your government positioning itself to lead regional energy integration?
Well, thank you. The first thing that we have done has been to make huge investments in the production of energy. So we embarked on a very ambitious project on one of our major rivers, and we have now finished construction of a hydropower plant, which now produces 2,115 megawatts. But aside that, we are investing in other projects, particularly to utilize our natural gas reserves, which are estimated at around 57 trillion cubic feet. And at the moment, actually, that's the main source of power. So we are diversifying our power sources also. But in addition, we have continued to invest in other hydro projects around the country. We are also doing a program to harness our potential in what do we call it now? Geothermal.
Yes.
We have a geothermal potential in several of our regions, and we have now started working on one which will produce about 500 megawatts. So that's on the production side. But we are also investing in the transmission so that we are able to hook into regional interpower connectors in order to be able to link up to neighboring Kenya, Zambia as well, Malawi. And this is very critical if we are positioned to position Tanzania to be able to be the main hub of power transmission. And
Mr. Vice President, if I could just ask, I mean, Mission 300 was a huge event put together by the African Development Bank, the World Bank, as well as with strong support from Tanzania. What has happened since then? What are the major gains that you've seen since then in this regard, particularly with regards to the ambitious plans that you do have? What are the significant things that have happened since January?
Well, since January, it's not a very long time.
I know.
But one, we have been able to lock in financial support, again, to ensure that we deal with the critical constraints which would allow us to be able to sell power to our neighbors, but also in case in some regions where we have not yet finalized the transmission infrastructure, we are able to connect, for example, to Ethiopian power. So it's not a very long time.
I know, but just as with other excellencies on the platform, I know you're all moving at the speed of light, and we wish you good success with this. I've gotten a signal that we're coming to the end of this session, so I think, Marie-Angèle, you have one last question for His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Niger, and then we'll come to a more general question to close out.
Mr. Prime Minister, in fact, I have a question for you. You talked about the high five, and you talked about Niger, about their assets. You said you have sunlight throughout the year. So sometimes our strength can be transformed into weaknesses. We're talking about raw materials, but we don't have to wait for food self-sufficiency and be able to feed Nigerians. Let me talk about Niger Food in partnership with Group the Dangote Group. To what measures are you taking to ensure the success of this initiative, and how would this contribute to food security and economic progress in Niger? Food self-sufficiency in Niger. For about 20 months, we have an operation which is called Grande Irrigation. You have 8 regions in Niger, and each of them, the head of state have decided that they will deal with all the small watershed. So it made it possible to come up with production, and this is the first time for 60 years that where we have not had any need to ask for assistance or to practice sales at lower prices, which means that initiative of the people of Niger is a reality in itself. The second important part about energy, Niger has made an effort to be part of the countries which will benefit from this M300 initiative. We are trying to use it as much as possible to reverse the trend. You know, before there was a power change in 2023, we were importing more than 70% of our energy products. At the point I'm talking, it's less than 30%. And when we're going to include the M300 initiative, we'll be able to cover all our needs. So this is a fundamental issue which will come and support agricultural production in Niger. Our ambition is not only that we should cover all our needs in 2-3 years, but we should be able to have a surplus that we can export. Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Let me, before the last round, let me add something. You're talking about the African Development for the bank group. It supported and continued to support your countries. We are at a time when we are building the replenishment of the fund. I want to know how you are working with the country and what you can say to President Adesina showed the way. He ensured that the African continent, and in particular, it is a determination for all Pan-Africanists in how we mobilize resources domestically to be able to support what is doing a lot for our economies. The Niger decided to provide $1 million in that fund. 1 million, yeah. We'll do it and we hope that in a few years the African Development Fund would not need to be financed by non-African countries. We thank all those who are contributing now. We need their contribution. But let me look at the theme for this year, making Africa's capital work better for Africa's development. When we talk about this youth, when we talk about the population, it is a very important asset, and we have everything that we need. All we need to do is reorganize and we ensure that we have good management and good leadership, and that we should have peace. We should be allowed to manage our resources ourselves, and we will not need unnecessary presence on our continent. Thank you.
Much appreciated. We're just coming to the close of this session in just a few moments, but I'd be very remiss if I didn't ask all of you, Your Excellencies, this last question, and I just want to give you probably about 2 minutes each to respond. This annual meetings, in particular, has a very special dimension as it marks, one, the election of a new president, and it also marks the end of a 10-year term, a remarkable 10 years of leadership by the president of the bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, a decade that saw him launch the high fives. I remember at the time a lot of people thought, well, what's the high five? But the brilliance of what he did was to simplify and synthesize complexity and make it something that was much more easily manageable. He's been known to be called Africa's optimist in chief. He doesn't see an obstacle that he thinks is impossible to overcome. And as leaders, each one of you have dealt with him and worked with him and vice versa over the years. What's your take on Dr. Adesina as you look back over his stewardship of the bank over the last 10 years? Just 2 minutes each. Just share your perspectives with us in this regard. We'll start with President Assoumani first, and then we'll go on in that order. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies.
I'm going to be brief because you're not that aware. He's a brother, and during these 10 years, I came to power in 2016, but I did everything to assist him to ensure that the bank should be a reliable institution. So we did advocacy, did everything to ask them to, because the AfDB has a financing mechanism which is more accessible. So I continue to congratulate him. All our wishes and prayers is that whoever is replacing him should be able to take over and do even better. If he is still there to direct the person, to assist the person. I wonder why Mr. Adesina should not be an advisor behind the scenes to his successor. You should be a discreet advisor, because the AfDB is a source of pride to Africa. And what the bank is doing for Africa is more than all the other institutions. It's all in our interest that we should ensure that the bank has the financial and human means to be able to work for the benefit of Africa. Thank you.
President Mahama.
Let me call him Akin, because Akin and Grace have become quite close friends of Lordina and I, and so we are family friends. But I first noticed him when I was president, and President Goodluck Jonathan, my friend, was president of Nigeria. At the time, Akin was Minister of Agriculture, and he was transforming Nigeria's agriculture at a very accelerated pace. He had come out with digital solutions for distributing subsidies, fertilizers, and all that. And it was something Ghana was grappling with, and so I took a special interest in what he was doing to try and copy what he was doing in Ghana. And so in 2016, when the election for AfDB came up and he was the candidate, I became his chief campaigner. Something happened at the time. President Goodluck Jonathan had nominated him, and Ghana was strongly supporting him. And then government changed in Nigeria. And sometimes when government changes, in our part of the world, sometimes, this guy was part of the last government, so we don't support him. So I became his chief advocate to convince President Buhari that his choice was not that of Nigeria, it was a choice of all of us. And the rest is history. He won, and everybody can see that we made the right decision. I don't regret that we supported him strongly. And I think because of the background he had in agriculture, in many of our countries, some of the poorest people are farmers, and considering that he worked with farmers, he understood what poverty was all about. He understood that farmers needed power to irrigate their crops and so on and so forth. So he came to the bank with quite a lot of experience. And there's one thing I thank God for. His father sent him abroad to study medicine, and he decided to study agriculture. And Adesina is who he is because of his understanding of agriculture and how it is important for countries to feed themselves. So in all the documentaries that I saw, for me, the most important thing was moving that number of families out of hunger and increasing Africa's food production by 44 million tons. That's significant. And so We are happy with the work he's done. He's introduced the special agri processing zones, which we're about to start in Ghana. And the first thing any leader, any president owes his people is to make sure that you put food on the table and that they have enough food to eat. He set a very high standard. The bar is very high, and I'm hoping that whoever succeeds him will not only be able to attain the bar that he has set, but be able to push it beyond. And so thank you very much, Akin.
Thank you very much, President Mahama. Next, Vice President Mpango.
Well, when my brother, Dr. Adesina, came into office, Tanzania was getting support from AfDB to the tune of $1.6 billion. Currently, it has soared up to $3.54 billion. So thank you very much. Everywhere we go in Tanzania, we can literally name several projects by his name. I have come to understand that in Yoruba, Akwinumi is someone who spreads joy and happiness. And therefore, I really want to commend the Yoruba people because they were spot on in choosing his name. Because the names not only have a meaning, they actually shape a person. So I really want to say without prejudice, Adesina, that I have known since I was Minister of Finance and Governor of the AfDB board, is a true African son of the soil, very devoted to a bright Africa, where the sun of prosperity shines 24/7. We thank you very much for what you have done for the continent. We wish you and your family a prosperous life. I think you are too young to retire, and I hope Africa will continue to use you and depend on you. And finally, I just want to reveal that consultations are underway back in Tanzania so that we name one of the prominent roads in Dar es Salaam or Zanzibar or Dodoma in your name in appreciation of the immense contribution to the development of Tanzania for the past 10 years. We wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vice President Mpango, and congratulations, Dr. Adesina. Your Yoruba translation is actually perfect, Mr. Vice President. Akinwumi is certainly somebody who spreads joy around. But in addition to that, the word Akin means warrior. And one of the things that I believe has typified the life of Dr. Adesina is that for all of his career, he's been a warrior against poverty and injustice. So to that, we say a big amen to your wishes. We'll come last, but certainly not the least, to Prime Minister Lamine.
Monsieur le Premier ministre.
Your Excellency, is not the Prime Minister who will be talking, he's a former staff member. Permit me to talk as a former staff member. President Adesina found me or met me here in Abidjan. We finalized the return of the African Development Bank from its temporary office in Tunis to the head office here. The person, Mr. Kabiriko, that he succeeded, that I would like to recognize. I was sent to Gabon soon after, and we needed to provide budget support to Gabon. At the board, many members were not for it. Mr. Adesina did the honor of calling on me, and he said, why are you defending the assistance of 500 million to Gabon? I told him that in its budgetary provisions, that country had put aside over $100 a barrel, and it had fallen that year to $29. So he said, I've understood everything, and he hung up, and he is the one who defended that budgetary support in Gabon. That's the first thing I remember about him. He sent me to Chad subsequently, where after a number of challenges, he asked me to act. President Deby called him to say, I thought that the person who you sent to act should remain here. He said, well and good, but he has a mission. First of all, he should follow up the completion of the bridge on Logon, and that the major infrastructure project of connection between Cameroon and Chad should be completed. Though that's a project that was supposed to produce energy, transport it, and distribute it. And there was also the issue of the budgetary assistance to Chad, and half of the members of the board were against it, saying that Chad had spent all its money on weapons. President Adesina called me. He said, explain to me, why should we support the budget? And I just simply told him that that country used over $1 billion to ensure its security, to ensure the security of the bordering corridors, Nigeria, Niger, and even Mali, Cameroon. And he said, I've understood you very well. He dropped the phone and he defended that these are things that cannot be forgotten. And today, I was very pleased to note that a few weeks ago, that bridge became a reality. He is the one who initiated it, and before he left, he inaugurated it. That's a bridge between two countries. It took hours and days to cross it, but today, in a few minutes, you are through. Thank you, Mr. President. I wish you all the best, and I think that I can tell you that you will certainly not have time to sleep.
Brings us almost to the close of our session, but we just want to say a very big thank you to Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, to his staff, to management, to the board, and to the Board of Governors for the excellent work done over the last 10 years. Truly transformative. We wish you all the very best, and again we say congratulations. For our panelists here today, His Excellency Azali Assoumani, President and Chief Marketing Officer of the Union of Comoros, His Excellency Mr. John Mahama, President and CEO of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Dr. Philip Isidore Mpango, Vice President, United Republic of Tanzania, ably representing Her Excellency Mrs. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, and a transformative one for that matter, and His Excellency Ali Mahaman Lamine, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Niger. Your Excellencies, we're truly grateful. We want to sincerely say a very big thank you for gracing this platform with your presence, providing ideas, and again, putting wind behind the sails of the African Development Bank. Before we close, graciously, kindly give a very warm thanks to our distinguished excellencies for a wonderful session. Once again, we say a very big thank you.